Tennessee Titans lost to the Jacksonville Jaguars 36-22. And obviously, I was proven wrong because I predicted the Titans would defeat the rebuilding Jaguars 27-19 in an entertaining close game. Uh, Titans would make fewer mistakes than the Jaguars, and Titans would protect the football. Both of which were proven wrong because the Titans didn't protect the football as undeniably shown because the Jaguars ended up winning the turnover battle for zip because the Jaguars defense created 4 turnovers. The Titans didn't make fewer mistakes; they made more mistakes than a rebuilding Jaguars team, including they had more penalties. They turned the football over 4 times, and they gave up 4. You know, they ended up giving up 4. Lawrence ended up playing like he's Ronnie Sunshine Bass from Remember the Titans, because he ended up throwing for 4 touchdowns, no struggle at all for that. Also running for valuable yards, and Jaguars offense was creating holes for the running plays also. So yeah, the Titans got outplayed by the Jaguars in both the first half and the second half because the Jaguars ended up taking the lead, and then they continued to increase that lead, and the Jaguars ended up outscoring the Titans in both the first half 20-14 and also in the second half 16-8. So it's very, I'm not surprised at all the Titans ended up losing just because of the fact that they turned the football over 4 times. They couldn't get pressure on Trevor Lawrence. Lawrence was able to run for valuable yards. He was also able to throw for 4 touchdowns. Jaguars played great as a team, while the Titans, they were playing mostly pretty good as a team, except then they just self-destructed with those turnovers after they had that lead of after they scored their second touchdown. They just started self-destructing, and the Jaguars just continued to play better than the Titans. And then this was a game that was so obviously, and it really didn't matter that Derrick Henry ended up having a great game, running for over 100 yards, more than 100 yards easily, and I think it was 1 touchdown, mainly because of the fact that the Jaguars won the turnover battle 4-zip, while the Jaguars didn't turn the football over exactly 0 times. So not really surprised at all that the Jaguars ended up winning this game 36-22 in a game where the Titans got outscored in both the first half and the second half by a rebuilding Jaguars team. And so, yeah, kudos to the Jaguars. They greatly outplayed the Titans in both the first half, as undeniable, because outscored in the first half, outscored in the second half. Titans made more mistakes than the Jaguars, and the 27-19 in the beginning proven wrong greatly, mainly because of the fact that the Jaguars end up scoring 20 points in the first half, and then they end up scoring easily 16 points in the second half. So yeah, this was just a very disappointing defeat. I can say that I am a lot less depressed for this game than I was for the Bengals and the Eagles game, just because of the fact that this was a game where the Titans kept it entertaining before the Jaguars increased that lead, while the Eagles game that just went from bad to worse in a game that only looked dramatic when the game got tied 10-10. After that, it just went from bad to worse. This was a game that started to become frustrating to watch, and except I can say, as far as the positives, this was a game where I would assume that, from what I could see, the Titans, they were using new play calling or different play calling after the Titans GM got fired, and they were prospering because they moved the football in the first quarter on 2 drives, ended up scoring 2 touchdowns, 14 points in the first quarter. So their offense was fruitful with the new play calling, mainly in the first quarter. They weren't able to do anything in the second quarter and third quarter, mainly because of turnovers. So I'm not entirely surprised they weren't scoring any touchdowns in the second quarter and the third quarter, along with the fact that the Jaguars' defense was getting pressure on Tannehill, getting pressure on Tannehill, sacking Tannehill, forcing the Titans into multiple long yard, multiple situations where them to get a first down, it was more than 10 yards, mainly not just because of sacks, but also because the Titans were self-destructing with penalties where they look more like the rebuilding team than the rebuilding Jaguars. Um, Jaguars outplayed them, and it was very frustrating. Also because, well, also be I could also say as far as also positive is the Titans were down. They were down 36-14. Now they easily could have gave up because they would have had to because they needed to score a touchdown and obviously get a 2-point conversion just so he can just get to 14 points instead of just delay and do the 2-point conversion later. So I'm pretty happy that in the fourth quarter where they easily could have where they easily could have just given up and stopped competing, attempting to start a comeback, they didn't. They were able to score a touchdown finally for the first time in the second half with I think it was 7:20 left in the fourth quarter, so close to so late, so when the fourth quarter is more than 40% over, and they also were successful for a 2-point conversion. So they showed effort to start a valiant comeback, except it was fruitless just because the fact that the Jaguars were still again able to hold them to one touchdown, 8 points in the second half. 8 points in the second half, along with the fact that the Titans weren't able to get into the end zone for a second time in the second half, able to score a second touchdown in the second half. They weren't able to do that because of a great performance by the Jaguars, by the Jaguars defense. And I guess what's most encouraging about this game, even though they end up losing in a game that was not as close as a score, mainly because of the fact that the Jaguars just continued to outplay. They just completely outplayed the Titans in the second half, and the game only looked like it got. And the Titans end up finally scored a touchdown in the second half when I think it was like 7:20 left. So the game is more than 50. Yeah, the game is close to is more than 50% over. So that's when they scored the touchdown. So they end up. So I can just take as far as what I can say positive mainly about this game is the Titans offense is fruitful in the first game with their with better play calling, different play calling, because scored 14 points without struggle in the first quarter. And Derrick Henry, he had a great game, ended up running for more than 100 yards without any struggles, not just mainly because the Titans offense was creating holes and he was taking advantage of the open areas. And also the fact that the Titans didn't give up in this game. In the game, they were trailing 36 in the fourth quarter, 36-14. Easily could have done that, except they didn't. And also for the fact that for the first time, I think since that Thursday night game versus the Packers in Green Bay, they end up scoring over 20 points. Exactly, they scored 22 points, and just the same number as Derrick Henry that Derrick Henry wears for the Titans running back Derrick Henry wears. So, yeah, I'm very happy that they end up scoring over 20 points for the first time in what is a long time. And if I recall right, yeah, it's the first time in December, the month of December, after failure to do that against the Bengals and failure also to do that against the high-flying Eagles, a great Eagles team that only has one loss. And anyways, yeah, I'm very happy that they end up scoring over 20 points, and no doubt they would have been scoring. No doubt this is an offense that can easily, realistically score more than 22 points a game with this better play calling if they're not self-destructing with turnovers, which they did versus the Jaguars 4 times to be exact. And if I'm recalling right, they end up, yeah, there was a fumble which was created by the Jaguars defense where Derrick Henry had the football, and also an interception thrown by Tannehill, and maybe there was I don't know some other one. So I mean that's like those are multiple drives where realistically they could have scored a touchdown and then another touchdown. Where if they're not, where this is a team that can realistically, even though it wasn't shown in this game, realistically based off of the fact that they were moving the football before those turnovers, moving the football far, they can realistically score more than 22 points. They can score more than 22 points for the remainder of their 4 games, which realistically would be enough to win those 4 games, mainly if they are protecting the football and just making the most of their opportunities to score points where they're protecting the football, moving the football, scoring mainly touchdowns, not field goals, and protecting the football, mainly protecting the football and winning a turnover battle. So, yeah, even though this was a frustrating defeat, a very disappointing defeat to a Jaguars team that has a losing record, so undeniably by that measurement, the Titans did lose to a bad team because I know the Jaguars are playing better, except by record, they are a bad team because they have a losing record. As Bill Parcells would say, you are what your record says you are. So even though the record doesn't reflect it, the Titans did lose to a bad team as far as we're going measurement by. There's no debate. The Jaguars have a losing record. So by that measurement, they are a bad team. So yeah, it was really frustrating, except again, I'm encouraged going for the remainder 4 games because realistically the Titans can score over 22 points, and that, assuming they also protect the football, realistically they can realistically defeat the Chargers, the Texans, the Jaguars, and whichever 4th team that they have remain. The team that I can't think of right now, they have remaining on their schedule. I know they have to play the Texans a second time, which will be in Nashville. They have to travel to Jacksonville to play a rebuilding Jaguars team that's mainly starting with this game. They started playing great as a team, from what I could see. They have to travel into Los Angeles, the city of Hollywood, the city, an entertainment capital in the U.S. and in the world, Los Angeles, to play a possibly pretty good Chargers team and one other team. So, except even though these are not lightweight games including the fact that the Cowboys had to fight and scratch and fight. They struggled to, well, they didn't struggle. The Texans ended up realistically they outplayed the Cowboys enough that they had a realistic chance to win that game, except they couldn't close. So I'm not saying any of these remainder games that they have, including versus the Texans and Jaguars, are easy, because they're not easy games. Except I'm still optimistic. I'm still optimistic realistically that the Titans do score more than 22 points in their remainder 4 games. They protect the football and they win their remainder 4 games, which are, they're challenging games, except they're still winnable, mainly because of the fact that they're not playing great teams. They're not playing the Chiefs. They're not playing the Eagles. They're not playing the Bills. They're not playing any of those teams that are in that level of they have to climb the high wall. They're playing teams that are going to be challenging, except beatable, mainly because if the Titans are realistic, if they do exactly what they should do, which is score more than 22 points, more than 22 points in a game, protect the football, and actually win the turnover battle and get pressure on the foe's the quarterback. So even though they end up losing and this is their 3rd consecutive loss in a row, I'm still encouraged that the better days are ahead for the Titans for the remainder 4 games, and that they'll either win 3 of those 4 games or all 4 games. I'm not going to be surprised because this team is capable of playing better. They showed it for multiple minutes in that game versus the Jaguars, and I'm confident they'll just finally put it together for a full finally stop self-destructing and play play good football like they're capable of doing for a full game, for their 3 or 4 of their remainder games or all 4 of their remainder 4 games. Go Titans, tighten up. Very excited for the final 4 games of the 2022 regular season.